be. Yeah, thanks. Cool. So welcome everyone. I don't know if I should run this or if John or Daniel, you probably will have more points on the agenda because I didn't know that Andy is not going to be here, or he said in the morning. So I don't really have that much on agenda. I was on vacation last week, so I'm sort of catching up now. So anyone who has something, please, yeah, bring it up. Like from my perspective, I still need to work on the seismological part, which I need to adjust a little bit to get all the. I sort of had some other ideas, a little bit changing the code, so I still need to work on that. But I started today, so I think by next week it should be all done and adjusted to the new flow. But for now, I don't really have that many updates on that, so really not that much new from my side.
So Vaclav, there was a question about converting from mini seed to HD5, and I don't know the formats that the seismology community uses. Is that something that we should all be interested in knowing more about?
HD5. I'm not familiar with that format. Who asked that question?
There was maybe a ticket was open that asked for HD5 support.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can look into it. Like right now, I'm having everything in mini seeds and also broadcasting on a seedling server. So that's the easiest way for anyone from the seismological community to tap into our data streams. So right now, not right now, but after that small rebuild, it's going to be very easy. Because all our JSONs from the sensors are going to be converted to mini seeds, and those mini seeds are going to be broadcasted by that seedling server. So, and seedling server is something that is very common in seismological community that people use to receive data from into different systems like SeisComp or Antelope or Earthworm. So for anyone who would like to have real-time data from us, they can tap into our seedling server. And do whatever conversions they want to, because that's, as I'm saying, that's a standard format. So for them, it's going to be quite easy to do any sort of conversions. So I'm not really keen on introducing more conversions on our side. I think that would be converting from one format to another and to another. Yeah, maybe not. But if there is a reason to, yeah.
IRIS-EDU just this last week put out a method to do it command line. So I'm sure if someone really needed it in that format, they could be able to easily just install the program, hit make, and then it's done.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's cool. So you are a seismologist, Andrew, or?
I have been doing this for probably about 15 years. Professional artist on the side. So I've written code since I've been like 15 years old. So now I'm come a long ways. I've learned a lot. There's a lot I don't know, but I kind of came from the owning several Raspberry Shakes and was not enthused with how they performed and the latency. And I wanted methods to be able to see things real time, similar to Swarm, but in a web format that was kind of open source. So that's something I've been working on for years. And I've been honing things down and working on it as I can. And so it's getting live Gila quarters and live spectrograms. There's really not a library out there that does live web-based spectrograms. So I really would like to see something like that. So that's something I'm working on.
Nice.
What Andrew, because I was looking at your the visualizations you put up on Slack a few days ago, and they're really awesome. It just looks great. So what did you use to create the visualizations themselves? Do they see it's a PHP file?
So in the back end, what happens is it loads up an array of 60,000 data points. So right now, the one that's on the Slack is only EHCD channel. So what it does is it throws it into an array, it writes it out into an array in JavaScript, and the rest of it is vanilla JavaScript that is manipulating SVGs. And I found that to be pretty easy. I know it could be implemented in React and other different ways with like Grafana or time-based DB, but I just wanted something that was super simple that would work straight on the fly, even with like a minimalist device somewhere, so someone could like on site actually see what was live going on.
Do you use D3 at all in the JavaScript?
I moved away from it for a while. I did play with some of that, but I've been thinking about coming back around to it. There's some other visualizations, especially for FFT, that were really nice. With the Raspberry Pi, you could do, especially with using graphics acceleration to do like the spectrograms and stuff like that. So I have a few models that I did of live spectrograms. I wasn't thrilled with them. The render speed was a little bit slow. So I'm still figuring out how and what is the best way to efficiently and with efficient use of memory in a browser to display those properly.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you, so this was kind of a question that we had like early on with the OpenEEW dashboard. We've moved off it a little bit. We've moved off of a lot of like the real-time components of the dashboard just for now, because I think that right now, you know, for the people in Puerto Rico that have the first few sensors up, I think we just find us fleshing out the sensors page a little bit more just so that they can manage their sensors and whatnot. But you know, the real-time visualizations and you know, visualizing the accelerations coming in from the sensors has always been on our radar. And so there's always been kind of a question of how to do that exactly. So I definitely think you'd be a good person to you know, to ask about that stuff or see what you've done in the past with it. But yeah, so it is kind of on our radar to have basically something similar to this after we finish, you know, the management of the sensors part of the dashboard.
Awesome.
Yeah, very, very cool stuff.
So of that, the live feed that you're seeing, that's just the straight sample, straight off of the seismograph. One thing I've been doing, I moved away from using, for the real-time data, they were using UDP and coming off of Raspberry Shake. And I was like, okay, that's great, but it's not really secure. It don't have, my endpoints aren't secure. So I started using U microsockets or UWS, which is Alex Holtzman's project that he's been working on for a long time. And converting to straight bytes, I was able to get my bandwidth down next to nothing, which worked out really awesome. And so my latency is probably only like 18 milliseconds right now.
Oh, interesting.
And it's working off a pub sub model. So I throw each channel into its, you know, R2DE5 is the station name. And then I throw that each channel into a different pub sub. And so then I take in Node.js, I take that and I've been feeding it into Redis and doing like low pass filtering. And eventually what I want to do later on down the road, once I get a few other modules built, is actually doing some AI inspection on the data that comes in. I have one station that's sitting next to it's about 0.7 kilometers away from a train rail. And it picks up a lot of noise, but there's ways to filter that out. And like, where is my real data compared to my noise?
Yeah. And for the sensors themselves, sorry if you said it before, but are you using Raspberry Shake or are you?
It is a Raspberry Shake for right now. I have actually, when I came across you guys, I got really excited because I was looking for a low noise accelerometer that, you know, could end up like on a Raspberry Pi Zero or some other small device. And I thought it was exciting. I went all through your, I've listened to all of your meetings. I've gone through pretty much all of your GitHub and your code.
Oh, no,
it's a lot of material.
Knows us. We're already like, you got us.
So I feel like I know you guys already.
Okay, well, welcome.
Sorry, what kind of Raspberry Shake is this? Is this the one with the geophone or with the MEMS?
It's the 4D. The EHZ is the geophone, sampled at 100 hertz.
So the one that you are showing on the, I just opened it, sorry.
Sure.
So the one that you are showing is the geophone one, or?
Yeah.
Let me see.
I find that the MEMS on the Raspberry Pis were incredibly noisy. It was really hard to filter them.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll find that like our MEMS is also noisier than the geophone, like definitely. But yeah, it should be quite solid. Cool. Well, thanks for joining. That's going to be very useful.
Yeah, definitely.
So I had one update. We all know that we use Node-RED as sort of the proxy for the device registration and activation, and also for the mobile app. And then the mobile app talks to app ID so that we create accounts for the dashboard. That code, which was a container, runs in the Kubernetes infrastructure that Adrian's built for OpenEEW, was a Node-RED container. And when I made changes, I would just log into the container and make changes there. And if I remembered, I would make changes on my local system of how I was kind of tweaking the flow, and we fixed bugs over the last couple of months. But I didn't really have a good GitHub pipeline or store of where the code was. And it seemed good enough a couple of months ago, but then I had made a small dozen number of changes to that program, and I felt like I was diverging too far. So I spent a little bit of time sorting through where the deltas were, and I brought those changes down to my laptop, and I again built the container. So you sort of start with a Docker file and a make file, and you do a make build and a make push, and you upload it. So once you've got the container, you can run it and test it local. And I've got all the MQTT secrets so that I can subscribe to all the topics. Now, I couldn't test it live because the sensor doesn't know how to talk to my local system, but I was able to at least test some of the pieces and know it worked. And then I pushed it to the container registry service, and I have a deployment kube deploy command line. So I've basically put everything that I know is now available in a Git repository. So if I get hit by the proverbial cement truck, everything is there now that someone else could take the flow, take the make file. The only thing I don't publish is the secrets for all of the MQTT so forth. And that I think Adrian's got that over in a kube secret. So that's kind of secure outside of the open source project. But everything else is now truly available, so that we don't necessarily have to build a GitHub action. We could. I just do a make kube, and it deletes the old deployment and puts the new one in place if you've pushed the container. So I think I've sort of orchestrated the pipeline, and there's no surprises in the code anymore. But I know from functionally, it's all the same. I didn't change anything. It's just work that I should have done months ago. Now it's at least in GitHub, people can see. My next trick will be to support VernNQ and potentially AWS IoT. That'll be the next big jump.
Yeah, as we see it right now, I think that if the VernNQ is complicated, I think we're going to probably use AWS IoT at some point, at least for some stations. So I think, yeah, if that one is easier than the VernMQ, that would be probably a priority for like us, for Nepal, for me and stuff. But yeah, like
okay.
You can also.
All right. Yeah, I saw that Andy had put like some sample code up, and so I should take a look at that. See if I can merge that into the main firmware branch. Andrew, I'm not sure where'd my sensor go. You've seen the device, right? Have you seen the device?
Yeah,
The
I looked at your schematics. They look great. I just haven't played with one yet.
Oh, okay. Well, they're less than $100 US. And the trick is that I didn't take no credit for the design. We've got some brilliant folks from Portugal and Andy, and then it's produced actually in China. But I worked on the firmware, so if you've got firmware questions, I can help you with the firmware. It's expressive Arduino ESP32 stuff.
I did have one kind of question because I don't want to always go back to Raspberry Shake, but one thing that was pretty easy when they first set up those devices is in their like etc host file, they just like name the device like what it is, and you could go into a browser and immediately log in like the first time and change your password and then put all your information in. And they kind of have like a small dashboard in there. Are you guys looking at doing that or just using the app to provision?
We use that right now. We're using, because it's an ESP32, there's really no user experience to it. It's all it's sort of you compile a program, a C++ program, and you flash it to the ESP. Different than a Raspberry Shake, that you actually have an operating system. So what you have to do is we built a mobile app, a contributor from New Zealand, and then I picked it up, a little Flutter app, which uses a protocol called Smart Config, and it broadcasts your Wi-Fi SSID and credentials. So you turn on the board the first time, it sort of blinks like a welcome message, welcome, blink, 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 and then you use your mobile app to sync up. Maybe you've got devices in your house, a smart device similar, where it sends the credentials to the board securely, and then once it's got the connection details, it connects to the Wi-Fi and starts streaming the data, which works great, except for it doesn't work well in Walmart, which was my next question. Pedro's here, and Andy had started with Walmart in Puerto Rico, and then stalled out because they were having trouble connecting devices because their Wi-Fi was up and down. Do we have any status, Pedro? Have you heard from the Walmart teams at all?
I personally have not. What I heard is that the issue with the Wi-Fi was like if it's a public network versus maybe even some Wi-Fi that didn't have passwords. I haven't heard back.
Okay. I wish we were on the ground to kind of see what they see, because it's hard to debug from New Jersey. All right.
Yeah, definitely. I can try to catch up with one of the students. Sorry?
I'd be happy to come down and in between El Presidente beers and so forth.
Medalla, it's Medalla.
Wrong island, but I was close.
Definitely, yeah. I think we need the help, so let's bring everyone down here.
Yeah, I guess that Andy would have more information about this, but I suppose that at the end of the day, if they are not connecting through Ethernet cable, but they want to use the Wi-Fi, they can probably use some other expressive app to just get to pass the password for the network, and then the devices should be configured to that MQTT endpoint, and we can finish up the authorization through either just like on a
like we did the manual ones for Nepal.
Yeah. So, and I think that that app is great, especially for people who own like one or two sensors and they want to have their own account. But if Walmart owns a bunch of sensors, and it's going to have the same administrator, same people that will be able to handle with the sensors, it may be quite easy, as you did for those Nepali sensors. So I think that if the app somehow doesn't work for Walmart, they can probably go back to a generic expressive app and pass the network details that way.
Okay. Well, I mean, We just have to get them going, and I just don't know how to do that from remote. Would love to get them going, especially with the seismic activity right now in the Caribbean.
Yeah, definitely. I'm archiving now all the data from those sensors that are running. Most of them is still in on trigger mode, which I think probably would be nice to change, but I can probably change it through your Node-RED dashboard, right? That I can. But some of them were not very responsive. I don't know what the reason was, but maybe I would ping you. I would try it again, and if I have some problems, I would ping you.
Yeah,
those specific issues.
Let me know.
But yeah, I'm saving all the data. So if there is something from Haiti that would be strong enough to be recorded on Puerto Rico by our sensors, we should have it all archived. So.
Any question for Ryan? Any dashboard stuff that we should be? I know we've got our typical call on Friday.
Yeah, so there's right now, so I merged in. Johnny made some changes with the last PR, and then we have some geolocation support on the dashboard that was another PR submitted last week. So both of those are merged in, and I'm working on basically rearranging the sensor page to Kristen's latest design, which takes out it only displays the sensors that belong to you on the sensors page. Based per what you're talking about now, there's also, I'd like to fit in, even though it was in the Friday dashboard meeting. So there's the part where I'd like the dashboard to be able to enter sensors into the dashboard manually, because I think that'd be a good backup for if the provisioning process fails. When I brought that up in the dashboard meeting, last week, basically the sentiment was like, well, why can't we get the onboarding app to work? Which is a valid question. But even if it doesn't, even if there always persists some sort of problem, I think there should be just some sort of backup that you can always just add sensors manually to it. So I think in my, in the next PR, I think I want to talk to Kristen about trying to just find some sort of way to add that to it, because it just sort of seems like a natural thing to be able to do with the dashboard. And then the other thing that I'd like to add, or that I'm currently trying to work on adding to this page, is the ability to name these sensors something other than the MAC address. Now, the MAC address will still stay as the unique ID for each one of them, but also having some sort of human readable name being added on. And those are kind of the stuff that I think were requested from Puerto Rico, just to make this page a little bit more easy to use.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we got quite a few. There's this one here, the San Germain, it seems new. There's a few that I've not seen before. Few that were on previously and have sort of disappeared. I'm not sure what happened to those. They haven't been on in a while. But there's a few new ones here. That's kind of exciting.
Yeah, and the version of it that I'm currently working on also changes the colors a little bit there. You'll only see like sensors that belong to you, unless we probably should have some sort of toggle that also brings in the other sensors. But the part where it's the individual colors to show their status, that's going to rely on whatever way that we end up connecting these sensors in the end, whether it's AWS, VernMQ, whatever it is, and it might be dependent on how whatever network wants to individually sort of modularize their own sensors or connectivity to their own network. But we do need to figure out some way that the colors are going to more accurately suggest whether or not it's actually connected or not. So there's the whole part where we talked about like a connectivity history to this page. Yeah. Still a fair amount of work to do. So,
Okay.
Andrew, if you have any React, experience, or Flutter for that matter,
I'll start looking into it.
Yeah, we could definitely use your help with this stuff, but it's coming along.
Yeah,
This is
that's pretty
somewhat
cool.
similar to ADSB data that I was a part of with the ADSB Exchange, and we were mapping all of the planes worldwide. So you're talking like ridiculous amounts of data constantly.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
cool to always show like the elevation of a plane in real time, depending on like the value set from the altimeter. And so everything was color coded. So you could do the same thing with like even like the movement or status, that kind of thing.
That's very cool.
What do we, Vaclav? Is this, does this a device that's on there, or is it an old one?
I don't know what this one is in India. I don't know who got censored.
It's in India. Sorry, I thought it was Nepal. So
no.
further north.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ryan, just one
That's
thing.
cool.
Like, if you add the human readable things in the database and stuff, maybe we can also take that opportunity and look at the sensor table in the database, because I think, I don't recall exactly now, but I had some things that maybe like worth thinking about, like how to restructure it a little bit, or formats of some of those things. Like some numbers were strings, as far as I remember. I haven't seen it for a while now, but maybe we could also have a look at that.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of data in the devices table that I'd like to either clean up, or I think there's some stuff from like previous versions and iterations of a few different repos. So yeah, maybe we could look at that together and try and figure out if we can get rid of some of the records that might end up causing trouble. I've also started a development database in cloud, so I'm just trying to get it connected now, so it's not filled with stuff, but we could potentially use that for testing and then also development, because using obviously the live data to develop on is not optimal. So yeah, that's all stuff. I'd like to clean up the whole cloud database to, make sure that we get a little more specific and what exactly goes in there.
Yeah. When you are ready for that, ping me, and like we should sit on that, and maybe you, John, if you want to, like you would probably, or definitely you would have some inputs too. So, and also one more thing, actually, I know, John, that you are probably trying to match the format of the JSON message in the firmware to match the sensors from Mexico, but somehow I'm not super happy about how the JSON message is structured. It's all right, like it works, but somehow like all the traces are in a list of one item and in a dictionary, and the dictionary contains, besides the traces, it contains the timestamp. So, and it doesn't really flow well for me.
Yeah.
So I know it was like historical.
I had no guidance way back, right? I just did exactly what was it in the Mexico OpenEEW. I just matched it, thinking that Indy had, or the prior teams had thought it through and said, okay, this is the way you want your data formatted. It's like weird trees, or deep arrays of arrays.
Yeah. Maybe we can also think about that and restructure it before it's too late. It doesn't matter too much, but I just would like it to flow a little bit nicer than like what it does right now.
Okay.
It always takes, I don't know. I think it's a little too complex for what it is, and unnecessary.
Yeah, we can make it simpler. I'm all for that.
Cool.
And the firmware would have to change, because that's what transmits, and then whatever parses the outputs would have to, your seismology scripts would have to change.
Yeah, definitely. And in there, it would be like sort of making a little bit of a trouble, because I would be also receiving the messages from Mexico that will be still in the same like old format. But I'm willing to take this because I think it's the JSON messages should be just simpler than what they are now. It's a small, probably it's going to be small tweaks, but I think it's worth doing it.
Well, what we could do is, I did well when there were tickets open. So if we want to open a ticket against the firmware and a ticket against the seismology repos, then we We tie the two together and say we're going to make this change, and then we negotiate what the new format should look like, and then it becomes implementation code in the firmware, which, with a bit of, pencil scratching, becomes a PR. But let's try to use the tools to track it, because tell me what you want. That'll be the right step. Don't make me invent things.
Okay, yeah, I can think about it, like what I think from my perspective would make sense, and anyone can comment that. Thanks.
What other topics we have today?
I just have a simple one. John, I asked your review on this pull request this morning. It was one of your issues you opened up for Andy. It was just because the contributing link was broken on our website when we redid the website. So
Right.
I fixed that today. So I don't know if you're just going to pull it or approve it.
All right, you want me to take a look at it?
Yeah. And so I know Andy has an open pull request that's been sitting out there that I had asked for changes on, but we never followed through on them. So once this is merged, what I'll do is I'll cherry pick what he had from that one he wanted to include, and it'll be in the main one here. So if we get this one merged, I can then work on merging the second one.
Okay. All right. I just have to scan through it. It's just some linting patches and a.
Yeah. It fixed the broken links. The two broken links, now they point to the wiki instead of the website for the contributing docs. And then I've linted the rest of the stuff. Got most of it, but some things are still in there.
Cool. All right. I'll do a quick read through this. Well, there's a lot more than one line. I'll read through it in the next couple of minutes, and then I'll merge. Well, actually, what happens? Does Adrian know if there's how does that get deployed when you update the website?
So the website's in a separate repo now.
Okay.
So, and that's the problem. We split. So OpenEEW.com used to be both. That was the website, and as well as hosting the contribution details. What we did was we split the contribution details into OpenEEW with its wiki, and the website itself is fairly just a single page visual app that doesn't contain much of its own anymore. And so because it no longer hosts the contributing, it's now in with the wiki. That's why the link was broken, and that's what I fixed.
Are you running a different linter than I am now? Because you sent me another one where you were changing bullets to dashes.
Yeah, I think it's the prettier one, but it runs against some markdown rules. What it flagged is stuff like HTML fragments aren't supposed to be in there. So the other repo that I double checked for you the other day, it had HTML anchors, but those are generated by Markdown automatically. So I just swapped them to the Markdown native format. So but there's something I format it in Visual Studio Code, and then it either auto formats or it tells me when there's issues, and then I manually fix them. So the one thing that's going to fail right now is Andy had some HTML tags for the images embedded, and those are things I got to come back to later.
All right. Well, it's up to you guys. I don't get over too bent over on HTML embedding. Sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. This looks good. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and one more news actually that I almost forgot about. Yesterday we had a call with Digicel in Haiti with Andy and Diego, and they will be getting some sensors that Andy's wife brought over to Haiti a week ago, because she's a reporter and she's now there reporting about the earthquake. So she brought in 3 sensors, and the Digicel people are gonna deploy them hopefully quite soon. And also in the future they will be getting more, probably 10 sensors for a small pilot, and that will be distributed in the fault area or fault zone. So that's actually quite exciting. But I'm sure that Andy will tell us more because he's much more familiar with these people and with Haiti,
Yeah.
because he worked in there before.
That's exciting. Will have some sense. So will they be OpenEEW sensors in Haiti?
They will be Grio sensors, I think, because it will be like an implementation of the OpenEEW technology, but I think it's going to be under the umbrella of Grio. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we've talked back and forth about what becomes the Caribbean EW, what becomes the Grio ones, and that just because the main back end, I think, is the big question we keep trying to solve. But at least in the case of the Puerto Rico instance, we'd want to keep the Watson system, right, for kind of that whole instance, and then anything that goes up in different countries is their own system that makes their own choice. Is that what we decided we're going to do?
Yeah. I think that I can't really speak for whole Grio for Andy, because that was that like the Caribbean network. It's a little bit more like his project, and he's getting money for it. But I think it sort of comes down to cost for the MQTT client, MQTT broker. I think that's what he needs to take in consideration, and the same thing for me in Nepal. Those are the things that we sort of need to go with the option that we are able to pay for. So I don't really know what it means for the network in Puerto Rico for the future. And I haven't really made a decision for Nepal network either yet. But we do have some credits in AWS, so maybe the IoT core would be like my choice now, given the potential costs for what's in IoT. But yeah, I haven't really made that decision yet, and I can't really speak for Andy for Puerto Rico. But yeah, I think that's something that also still need to be sort of like thought through, is the dashboard, and like what sensors are, for example, displayed on the dashboard, because for example, like I will be bringing quite soon 20 sensors to Nepal. So are those going to be, and it doesn't really have much to do with, it's an implementation of OpenEEW, but it doesn't really have much to do with Grio, because I got funding from somewhere else. Like it's not a Grio project. So I'm not really sure if those sensors should be shown on the sort of like OpenEEW / Grio implementation of dashboard that shows the other sensors now. So I don't know, have we actually thought about this, or have we got some decision on this? Like, am I going to be hosting my own dashboard, and if I want to show the sensors and do stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I remember us we sort of have gone back on that, because my understanding of it is that, originally we started out with the idea that this would be sort of one, OpenEEW would be sort of one monolithic thing and have this sort of global network. But then I think we sort of realized, that we're never going to have the density to really, we don't have the infrastructure or the money ourselves to be able to handle like all these networks all over the place. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think over the last like week or two, or the last two meetings or two, we sort of moved back to the idea of, OpenEEW provides the technology, right? And you can implement this however you want in your own network. And it would also be modular enough so that you can have it work with different cloud providers. The dashboard, you could be able to modify that in certain ways in the future, perhaps even not even use authentication for it. I mean, obviously all that would take a little bit of work, but I think if I understand it correctly, we've moved back to the sort of everyone decide their own path to how they want to implement the OpenEEW technology. And so, yeah, under that, as far as the dashboard is concerned, or probably the entire system, you would be creating your own implementation of the dashboard in Nepal. And we put some functions in so that it would at least center the map on Nepal based on what you wanted, but you could then choose however, whatever infrastructure you wanted to implement that in Nepal, and then also choose how you want to display the dashboard.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, right? And then the other flavor was, for Puerto Rico, we were going to focus on Watson IoT, at least from the IBM contributions with Pedro's doing, what John's been doing. But I think there was also a flavor in there where the web, right, the OpenEEW.com, you could opt to push data there from your particular country's network. So if you wanted to voluntarily add any information, there was going to be a toggle in the dashboard where it's basically you can upload that information. I think that was kind of where we settled with it, was, like you said, segmented networks, implementations of the core open source technology on whatever platform that country wants to use, and then some sort of global being the voluntary opt-in to share just sensor locations or something like that.
Yeah. For that, like, I'm sorry, Daniel. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was done. I was somebody else.
Oh yeah. No, I'm done too.
Yeah,
just agree with all that.
I would be more than happy to push the data up to this common dashboard, and I don't think that I would necessarily need my own dashboard for Nepal, at least not at the beginning, because I think that would be also a problem. Sort of like I can't really create another dashboard instance by myself, and I would need resources of OpenEEW. So I would, but as it is some initiative of another institution, it is not, I can't really take resources of the OpenEEW open source community to create something that is not directly for OpenEEW. So I think that's probably something that I don't probably need my own instance of dashboard. I think that I can push it, like the locations and stuff, I can push up to the common instance. But yeah, we can still talk about it somewhere down the road a little bit.
Yeah, but at least heading in the sort of module direction, I think is kind of where we started in the first place, right? Because it was always modular from at least the time that I signed on, and that was the whole idea of using Kubernetes, and that the fact that it could be easily transferred between providers, or you can easily package up your own implementation of it and deploy it. I think we went to the more like one system global route sort of midway through, but yeah, I think there's a lot of challenges in that aren't it's not only just resources challenges, it just doesn't really, I think we learned that every system is every infrastructure is going to use a different sort of implementation of it, so why not let everyone do that?
Yeah, and there's different people owning each network and their own degree of citizen scientists having their own instances, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, we just need to document it and formalize it, because I know we've discussed it a few times. Just make sure we have it as kind of the record.
Yeah, especially on when we were making the OpenEEW.com website, I think we were more in the thinking that it would be sort of this global thing. So right now you click on it, it looks like there's sort of one OpenEEW dashboard, and we can still probably keep that up just to sort of show the sort of global reach, but we probably should make that a little bit more apparent that this is more of a that dashboard implementation either is for the Caribbean, or it's more of a sort of demonstration of what you could create in your own network using this technology. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I'm all out of things to discuss with the dashboard.
Okay. All right, that's all I got there, guys. I approved your PR, Daniel, and merged it.
Nice.
Yeah, maybe we like this is an issue that we should probably keep in mind, because sensors are going to be adding up, like either by me in Nepal or Haiti, or different places are going to have more sensors, and I think that we'll be probably running into this issue repeatedly. Like, what is the role of the global OpenEEW dashboard site? Like, who is going to maintain it? Who is going to pay for those things? So I think that's probably something that obviously we don't have all the answers right now, but we should probably keep it in mind and discuss this in maybe technical steering committee meeting, or also this general town hall meeting next time, to reach some kind of a conclusion, and so we can also steer the system towards that way, because I think it's probably these questions gonna keep coming up.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, let's try and remember for the next town hall to discuss that, for especially when Andy's going to be around, because yeah, I mean the dashboard, the one that's connected to the dashboard right now that's connected to OpenEEW.com is like the Grio implementation of the dashboard. So we need to get Andy's opinion on what direction that specifically would go. If it wants to be solely for the Caribbean, or for or for like showcasing what OpenEEW can do with all the global sensors and everything.
Yeah, right. Cool. So if no one has any other news or issues to discuss, I'll probably stop recording. Or does someone have something to add? It doesn't need to be this topic. No? Okay.
I'm out and get some lunch.
Sounds good. Now I can't see how to stop recording. Stop recording. There it is.